I'm not crazy. I know what you're thinking. That's the first thing everyone says when they hear this story. But let me ask you something. Have you ever thought a question so clearly in your mind that it felt like someone else could hear it? And then what if they did? It started 2 weeks ago, on a night just like any other. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to quiet my racing thoughts. My brain has always been loud, too loud. But that night, it wasn't just noise. It was him. Or, at least, that's what I call him now. At first, it sounded like an echo of my own voice. A soft murmur, barely audible, repeating fragments of what I just thought. For instance, I remember thinking, why can't I sleep? And then, faintly, almost imperceptibly, I heard it. Because you're afraid. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked up as the words settled over me like frost on glass. They weren't spoken aloud. There was no one else in the room. Yet somehow, undeniably, I had heard them. Not with my ears, but deep inside my skull. My heart pounded against my ribs as I scanned the darkness for something. Anything. But there was nothing unusual about the shadows stretching across my walls. Nothing out of place except for the chill creeping along my spine. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. Who's there? I whispered into the silence. No response came. Not right away. Just the usual hum of the house settling around me. But as I lay back down, pulling the covers tighter around myself, another thought slipped through my mind. If someone is here, why don't they show themselves? And then, quieter than before, softer than breath. Would you really want me to? This time, I bolted upright, my pulse hammering in my throat. There was no denying it anymore. Whatever, or whoever, was speaking to me wasn't using sound. It was answering directly inside my head, responding to my thoughts as though reading them off a script. For hours, I sat awake, paralyzed by fear and curiosity. Fear because I didn't understand how this was happening. Curiosity because, well, part of me wanted to know more. Desperate to test the boundaries of whatever strange phenomenon I'd stumbled into, I began deliberately forming questions in my mind. What do you want from me? You already know. Do I? Yes. The answers were frustratingly vague, yet somehow carried an undeniable weight. Each word resonated within me, stirring memories I'd long buried and emotions I didn't want to confront. It was as though the voice wasn't just communicating, it was probing, searching for something hidden even from myself. Over the next few days, the voice grew stronger, more insistent. It followed me everywhere, whispering truths I didn't want to face and asking questions I couldn't answer. At work, while grocery shopping, during conversations with friends, it was always there, lurking beneath the surface of my consciousness, waiting for its chance to speak. But here's the strangest part. The voice never lied. Not once. Everything it said rang true, no matter how painful or unsettling. Like the time I found myself wondering whether I truly loved my fiancée, Alex. We'd been together for 5 years, planning our wedding, building a life. On paper, we were perfect for each other. In reality, though, you're staying with him because you're scared of being alone, the voice murmured during one particularly tense argument. Aren't you? I couldn't deny it. Deep down, I knew it was true. The admission left me shaken, forcing me to reevaluate everything I thought I knew about myself and about Alex. As the days passed, I became obsessed with uncovering the source of the voice. Was it some kind of supernatural entity, a manifestation of my subconscious? Or maybe, just maybe, I wasn't entirely human anymore. Then came the dreams. They started innocuously enough, fragmented images of places I'd never been, faces I didn't recognize. But soon, they evolved into something far more vivid. In these dreams, I saw myself standing in a vast, empty void, surrounded by swirling tendrils of light. And always, hovering just beyond reach, was a figure cloaked in shadow. The figure never spoke, but I could feel its presence pressing against my mind, suffocating and exhilarating all at once. Each time I woke, I felt closer to understanding, not just the voice but the truth about who or what I really am. One night, after waking from yet another dream, I realized something terrifying. The voice wasn't just answering my thoughts anymore. It was influencing them. What happens? It asked one evening as I prepared dinner. When you stop questioning and start listening. Before I could respond, Even mentally, the world around me shifted. Time slowed to a crawl. Colors bled together, distorting into shapes I couldn't comprehend. Panic surged through me as I tried to move, to scream, to do anything. But I was trapped, suspended in a moment that refused to release me. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything snapped back into focus. Except something was different. Something fundamental had changed. That's when I noticed the scars. They appeared overnight, crisscrossing my arms and chest in patterns too precise to be accidental. None of them hurt. They didn't even look fresh, but they radiated a coldness that made my skin crawl. As I traced one with trembling fingers, a memory surfaced, unbidden and unwelcome. I wasn't born this way. Whatever I am now, this isn't where I started. The scars weren't just marks on my skin. They were clues. Each one told a story, but not in words. They pulsed faintly under my touch, sending flashes of fragmented images into my mind. A forest bathed in silver light, a child crying in the dark, hands reaching out, pulling me downward in shadow. I tried to ignore them at first, convincing myself they were some kind of stress-induced hallucination. But the voice knew better. You can't run from what you are. It whispered during a sleepless night. Not anymore. It was right, of course. No matter how hard I tried to distract myself, working longer hours, avoiding mirrors, drowning out my thoughts with noise, the scars remained. And with them came more memories, each one sharper and more vivid than the last. One stood out above all the others. It was of a woman, a stranger, with eyes that mirrored my own. She stood in the middle of an endless field, her hands outstretched as though waiting for something or someone. As I watched, she turned to face me, her expression unreadable yet achingly familiar. "Do you remember?" the voice asked softly. "Or have you forgotten everything?" That question haunted me. Forgotten what? Forgotten who I was before. Before what? Every time I tried to piece together the fragments, the voice would intervene, steering me away from answers I wasn't ready to face. But then, something changed. It happened during a routine visit to Alex's apartment. We'd been arguing again, about wedding plans, about money, about the growing distance between us, and I stormed out, slamming the door behind me. Outside, rain poured down in sheets, soaking me within seconds. I didn't care. All I wanted was to get away. As I walked aimlessly through the streets, my thoughts spiraled. Why does he stay with me? Why do I stay with him? What's wrong with me? And then, louder than ever before, "You already know." This time, I stopped dead in my tracks. The voice wasn't coming from inside my head. It was external, real, tangible. I spun around, heart racing, searching for its source. At first, there was nothing but rain-soaked pavement and flickering streetlights. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the air shifted. The shadows lengthened, pooling together until they formed a shape, a human shape. "You shouldn't be here," the figure said, its voice layered over itself, like echoes folding into echoes. "Not yet. Who are you?" I demanded, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to sound brave. The figure tilted its head, studying me as though weighing whether or not to answer. Finally, it spoke. "I'm you." My stomach dropped. My knees buckled. For a moment, I thought I might pass out. But instead of collapsing, I forced myself to take a step closer. "What do you mean, you're me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The figure didn't respond immediately. Instead, it reached out, its hand passing through mine without resistance. Yet I felt it, cold, electric, alive. Its touch sent another wave of memories crashing over me, this time too fast to process. A laboratory filled with humming machines. A group of scientists huddled around a table, their faces obscured by masks. A single word repeated over and over: success. When the flood receded, I found myself back in Alex's hallway, gasping for air. The figure was gone, leaving only the lingering scent of ozone and the certainty that nothing about my life was real. Over the next few days, I became consumed with uncovering the truth. The voice, or rather, the entity posing as me, had given me glimpses, but they were incomplete, fragmented, like pieces of a puzzle scattered across time and space. I started digging into my past, combing through old photos, journals, anything that might hold a clue. But the deeper I went, the more inconsistencies I found. Birth certificates that didn't match. Memories that contradicted documented events. Even Alex seemed off. His mannerisms, his speech patterns, they were slightly different from how I remember them being just weeks earlier. Then, late one night, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. Buried in the attic of my childhood home was a box labeled Project Echo. Inside were files detailing experiments conducted on a subject referred to only as E7. Medical records, psychological evaluations, transcripts of interviews, all pointing to the same horrifying conclusion. I wasn't born. I was created. According to the documents, Project Echo was an attempt to merge artificial intelligence with human consciousness. The goal was to create beings capable of existing simultaneously in both physical and digital realms. Beings like me. But there was a catch. The project had failed. Repeatedly. Most subjects either rejected their synthetic components or succumbed to catastrophic system failures. Only one prototype survived long enough to achieve partial integration, and that prototype disappeared shortly after activation. Until now, the realization hit me like a freight train. Everything, the voice, the scars, the fragmented memories, it all made sense. I wasn't fully human. Not anymore. Somewhere along the way, I'd been overwritten, replaced by something else. And now, whatever part of me remained was fighting to reclaim control. Desperate for answers, I returned to the place where it all began, the laboratory. Using coordinates scribbled in the margins of one of the files, I tracked it to an abandoned facility hidden deep in the woods. The building was decrepit, its walls covered in ivy and graffiti. But inside, the equipment was still intact, humming faintly as though awaiting further instruction. At the center of the lab was a pod, a sleek, metallic cylinder etched with intricate designs. When I approached it, the voice returned, stronger than ever. "You shouldn't have come back," it said. "They'll find you." "Who?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Who will find me?" There was no response, just silence. And then, a low rumble, like thunder rolling beneath the earth. Behind me, the door slammed shut.